Bonsoir everyone, welcome to Chacha Paranormal. Today I'm going to tell you about a fascinating French ufology case that is almost 50 years old. Let's go. It all starts in September 1977 in Vaires-sur-Marne in the Paris region, a place located about 22 kilometers east of Paris, near a power plant and a dense forest area. A setting that seems ordinary at first glance, yet it will soon become the stage for some of the most disturbing events ever reported in the region. At the time, Patrice, who was 20 years old, worked in a warehouse with his friend Joe. One Monday morning, Joe arrives at work in an alarming state, pale, shaken, and visibly traumatized. He then tells Patrice what he experienced the previous Friday night. That evening, Joe was in the woods of Vaires-sur-Marne with his girlfriend. They were sitting in his car, a green Citroën Diane, parked off to the side in an isolated part of the forest. As they were quietly flirting, something suddenly caught their attention. At the rear of the vehicle, a man was watching them through the window. But this was no ordinary man. Joe described a being of unimaginable old age, as if he were 200 years old. His skin was deeply wrinkled, his face carved by time, and he wore a long beard streaked with grey and black. The whole appearance was so excessive, so unreal, that he seemed far too old to be alive. The stranger looked like the archaic image one might have of an ancient druid, as if he had stepped out of another era. Overwhelmed by fear and anger, Joe jumped out of the car, a baseball bat in hand, ready to defend himself. But before he could take more than a few steps, the being vanished instantly. There was nowhere he could have hidden. The trees were too far away. The ground was open. And above all, no man, especially one so old, could have escaped at such speed. Not even a young, healthy adult could have done so. This totally inexplicable disappearance left Joe and his girlfriend deeply shaken, intrigued, and perhaps driven by a strange sense of fascination. Patrice and Joe decided to return to the site the following Friday night, to the exact same spot. They parked the car facing the trees, with their backs to a quiet country road. The engine was off. The lights were off. Only a faint moonlight filtered through the branches. The silence was heavy. After about 20 minutes of waiting, immersed in the darkness, Patrice noticed something in the rearview mirror. At the edge of the wood stood an humanoid. The being slowly turned its head from left to right, as if checking whether it was being watched. Then he fixed its gaze on the car. And then, in just 3 enormous leaps, it covered about 60 meters. In roughly 10 seconds, it ended up pressed against the passenger side window, only a few centimeters from Patrice's face. What Patrick saw paralyzed him. The entity's eyes were two vast, gaping black voids, terrifyingly deep. Patrice felt as if he were being pulled in, as though his mind were literally opened. He experienced a total penetration of his being, conscious, unconscious, and subconscious. He was certain that this thing knew everything about him, his past, his present, and even his future. Panicking, Joe started the car violently. The headlights flickered on. The interior lighting flashed erratically. They fled at full speed toward Paris. When they reached Saint-Germain-des-Prés, they stopped at a bar to try to recover over a cup of coffee. Their hands were shaking, their breathing uneven. They felt an oppressive sensation of being followed, as if an invisible presence were still hovering around them. The fear was so intense that they urgently needed to use the restroom. But the idea of isolating themselves in a stall in the restaurant's basement terrified them even more. Later that night, Patrice returned to his parents' home, the old suburban house where he had grown up. The building was divided into 3 apartments. He opened the front door and hurried toward the stairwell, impatient to turn on the lights. He was terrified of being left in the dark. But suddenly, the light went out. In the total darkness, Patrice then heard a calm, composed voice say to him, "Don't be afraid, reassure yourself." Then, as Patrice placed his foot on the first step, the voice continued, "We take care of everything. We control everything." The light came back on. Relieved, Patrice climbed the stairs, and that's when the experience shifted into something even stranger. Like in a waking dream, he found himself facing a perfectly lit circular room. In front of him, 3 or 4 people were standing behind smooth white lecterns. At the center was a table, around which stood 2 beings. One of them appeared human, with short brown hair. Without speaking, the being transmitted a message to him telepathically. "Don't worry, we will always be here. We will watch over you all your life, and even beyond." Patrice then felt a strange sensation of timelessness. Time seemed suspended. He felt calm, almost protected. To test the truth of what he was experiencing, he replied mentally, "If you are so powerful, turn off the lights on the second step." Instantly, total darkness. This time, without feeling the slightest fear. Patrice checked the fuse box. Everything was working normally. He then rushed to wake his brother Gilles and told him the entire story. It should be noted that a few months earlier, Patrice had already seen a UFO in the area. Coincidence or part of a much larger picture? Impossible to know. 2 weeks later, Patrice, Gilles, Joe, and Patrice's future wife returned to the site at nightfall. After about 30 minutes of waiting, they suddenly heard magnificent melodic singing. On the right, a chorus of male voices. On the left, female voices. The singing lasted about 1 minute. The words seemed to be in English, or at least in a similar human language. But they were completely unintelligible. And above all, they saw absolutely no one. The singing seemed to come straight out of the void. On a foggy Friday night in December 1977, Gilles, Joe, and a friend interested in ufology returned once again to Vaires-sur-Marne. Gilles, sitting in the back seat, noticed on his left what he first thought was a road sign or a post at the edge of the woods. But there was no post in that location, and it could not be an inanimate object because the shape moved, advancing and retreating. Suddenly, an unknown car appeared, headlights blazing, briefly illuminating the figure. What they saw was a humanoid, about 1.7 meters tall, with a large, disproportionate head. The being stared at them. Its gaze was deep, black as darkness, with 2 gaping holes where its eyes should have been. Then, without any run-up, it leaped forward with both feet, covering a distance of 30 meters, straight into the heart of the forest, and vanished. In March 1978, Gilles and Joe were having a coffee in Saint-Germain-des-Prés at night. Behind them, they overheard a group of young people talking about humanoids and extraterrestrials. Intrigued, they joined the conversation. The young people claimed to have seen, in the very same place, strange phenomena in the forest of Vaires-sur-Marne. including humanoids around a phosphorescent green pyramid. They decided to go there together, packed into 3 cars. Once there, they followed one of the young people down a forest path. After about 100 meters, they heard small, high-pitched cries like a mouse squeaks. In a clearing, the scout suddenly shouted, "There they are." He stepped back abruptly. Behind the tree appeared a head black as night, popping in and out at a phenomenal speed, as if it were vibrating. It was a grey. Then everything accelerated. About 15 humanoids appeared from everywhere. Their sizes ranged from 1.2 meters to 2.5 meters. They moved so fast that they seemed blurred, vibrating. They had no visible hands or feet, wore tight-fitting suits, and had huge heads and large black eyes. Panic broke out. Everyone ran. Jill stopped for a moment and turned around. The beings were gone, except for one thing. A huge dark mass, about 3 meters tall, with a failing-like movement, resembling a giant cat, was following them at a distance between the trees, like a predator on the hunt, an oppressive presence that seemed to literally suck in the young man's psyche. Then, nothing. Everyone went home. They will never meet that group of young people again. These events began suddenly and ended just as abruptly. With insight, the 2 brothers admitted they had been afraid of the unknown, but later came to believe that these beings did not mean them any harm. A year later, strange words, a cryptic language, and even mathematical formulas came into their minds, as if by telepathy. Among these messages, one enigmatic phrase kept returning: "The answer is in the marshes." And indeed, there were marshlands in the woods near the sites of the encounters. Finally, it must be said that Gilles and Patrice were not experiencing the unknown for the first time. In the family home, they had often glimpsed white shapes moving in the darkness, out of the corner of their eyes. Later, Gilles would interpret them as multidimensional beings. They never talked about it with each other, yet their other brothers and sisters saw them too. For many years, Patrick and Gilles felt as though they were prevented from speaking about these experiences. Today, Patrice has unfortunately passed away, and the hypothesis that Gilles favors is that of a dimensional rift, a passage allowing entities from parallel worlds to briefly enter our reality. And what if that corner of Vaires-sur-Marne wasn't just an ordinary forest, but a point of contact between worlds? Let me know what you think in the comments. In the meantime, be careful where you park your car at night. And I'll be back very soon. Bye.